Hi, and welcome. Today we are very lucky to be speaking with Senator Mike Gravel, candidate for president. Not often that we get a candidate for president here in Brattleboro. And I've checked the list. You're not on the list of people we're supposed to indict or arrest or anything like that.
That's right. I haven't been caught hiring any ladies either.
Right. We're going to talk about all sorts of things, but I like to start back at the beginning. You grew up in Springfield?
Massachusetts. My parents are French-Canadian. They came down in the 20s. There was quite a migration then because of the economic problems in Quebec area. They came from Sorel and Saint-Joseph. I have more relatives in Canada than I have in the United States. They both came from large Canadian families. I was born in Springfield. I went to school at Worcester, at Assumption Prep, did a year at Assumption College, did a year at AIC, American International College, in Springfield, and went into the service for 3 years during the Korean War. Then came back, went to Columbia, did 2 years there, went to Alaska, got there, broke. 12 years later, I'm sitting in the United States Senate. Old Chinese proverb, work hard and be lucky, and the rest is history.
Well, I have a question, because as kids, we're all sitting in the classroom, and the teacher says, one day you can grow up to be president. Now, they must have said that. It clicked with you, did it? Or
well, yes, and that's what I've been trying to realize ever since. Mm-hmm. Not really. I gave up the thought of being president when I released the Pentagon Papers. I realized that was very much out of the box. When I was a senator, I was very much of a misfit. I did not enjoy the support, by and large, of the Democratic Party in Alaska. I had developed a personal support group within the Native community, within the Black community, and within the poorer groups and the labor movement. Not within the middle group. And then, of course, in 1980, when I lost office, I lost in a primary. It was a Democratic primary. I lost then. And then, of course, what happened now, I did not have the support with the Democratic Party within these debates. And as you may want to develop, I was shut out by the leadership of the Democratic Party, and I might say your former governor, Howard Dean, conspired with the corporations, particularly General Electric, which owns MSNBC, to cut me out of the debate last September when I had pointed out that the Democratic Party and Hillary had gone forward and bought into and passed Lieberman II resolution giving George Bush the power to attack Iran, when there's no reason to do that, and it would be horrific if that were to happen. And it's still a threat today because he has that authority if he chooses to exercise it. That's very, very sad.
We passed a resolution just this spring here at our town meeting.
And bravo on that.
We don't want to go to war.
Not only don't want to go to war, I think in Vermont you passed a resolution or a law that if George Bush comes to Vermont, he will be indicted, or in fact, if I become president, or when I become president, I will resuscitate what George Bush threw under the door, which was the World Criminal Court, where we have this treaty that we have not pursued. And I will pursue that aggressively, and that is that we joined the world community of laws, and we don't hold ourselves above the law. And I think that there's a distinct possibility that George Bush and Cheney and the neocons could be prosecuted for the preemptive war of going into Iraq. This is a fraud that was sold to the American people. There was no reason to attack. Saddam Hussein was not threatening us. Saddam Hussein was not contemplating going to war with us. And yet we invaded him. We've killed over 4,000 Americans at this point in time, and certainly more than 1 million Iraqis. Why? Because these foolish people wanted to steal the oil of Iraq. That's not reason enough, and they should be prosecuted for that. And the place to do that is like we did with Milosevic, and where we did with other criminals, is take them to The Hague and prosecute them for their crimes.
Let's go back to these debates a little bit. Why is it that we never hear these candidates saying anything like that, really? I mean, obviously you do, but why? I keep waiting for one to say, the last 7 years have been a fraud, and we need to correct these wrongs, and then we get someone like Obama who's saying, let's all get along, and Hillary, let's continue what we're doing.
Well, think of how silly. Let's take Obama's statement. Let's all get along. He's going to be a leader and going to bring us all together, and we're going to heal. Well, first off, and remember, Bush said that, I'm going to be the president that's going to heal everything, bring them together. The uniter. Well, the first thing he does, he's a president. So he's got Republicans in Congress. So he's got to go raise money to get them reelected. So who are they going to raise money for? Republicans are going to run for Democrats. So the Democrats in Congress are going to get mad at the president, so they're going to try and sabotage whatever he wants to accomplish because he's trying to get them to lose their seats. So you think they're going to cooperate with him? So you think they're going to cooperate with Obama when he's out there raising money for Democrats to run against Republicans? So it is absolutely a stupid statement to make to the American people that he's going to unite everybody. Well, we are so naive as a public as to think that, oh, this guy is such a healer. He makes such a wonderful statement. He's going to bring us all together. It's naive. That's not the way the party system works. That's not the way the Congress works. But we're all prepared to be what's the terminology? To be lied to one more time. One more time. We're all hoping against hope that something will change, and nothing really changes. And nothing will change with Obama and Hillary. It's the same old story. It's politics as usual. He's with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a party of war. With the Vietnam War, the Iraqi War, they voted with, and he didn't even show up for the vote. He could have showed up and filibustered and postponed this legislation. Heck no, he wasn't even there to realize how important it was to stop George Bush from having the authority to invade Iran. Now, if he doesn't have that degree of sensitivity, what kind of a leader would he be if he's president? And Hillary didn't even understand what she was voting about, because when I brought it up, all she could do was cackle and laugh, and people thought this was so silly. Here, she wants to be president. She wants to answer the telephone at 3 o'clock in the morning. What's she going to say when she answers the telephone if she doesn't understand an issue like giving the president authority to invade somebody who's not a threat to you? If you can't understand that, what's she going to say on the telephone?
Now, why is it that, are these people spineless, or are they kind of calculating and manipulative? You know, like, we keep looking at our leaders and we say, all right, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to, vote against this one time, and they kind of maybe do so in some of their committees or some speeches, but then at the last minute they decide, oh, yeah, we like the Patriot Act. Our own Senator Leahy, co-sponsored it.
Right.
Why?
Gutless. Is there another word for it? Gutless. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to appear reasonable. Here, Pat, I know very well, and he just made a statement, well, Hillary ought to give in. There's nothing wrong with Hillary going right to the convention and battling every step of the way in confrontation. Hopefully, she and Obama will maybe at the end address some issues. The issue of his race and her agenda is not an issue that's important. What's important is that Americans are dying and Iraqis are dying in Iraq. That's important. What's important is that the United States of America is spending more on defense than all the rest of the world put together, and there's not a country in the world that threatens us. That's important when we don't have the money to spend on education, to spend on health care, to spend on refurbishing our infrastructure in this country. That's important. You think they talk about that? When we know that Obama says, well, he was there in Chicago working with the poor, did he not see these people in the inner city pumping drugs into their body? And what did he say anything when I raised it in the debates about stopping the war on drugs? Did he not think he might want to raise his voice and say, yes, I agree that drugs are savaging our inner cities, that are damaging the black community? Did he raise his voice? He was hiding under the table when I was talking about this. And is this a dangerous subject to say that the war on drugs is a total failure? Is it wrong to say that, here, he could rely upon the Republicans? Nixon had the Schaefer Commission when he was president that discovered that marijuana is not an addictive drug. It is not a gateway drug. It should be deregulated. We should be able to buy marijuana in a drugstore or in a grocery store or in a liquor store. And as far as other drugs, they should be decriminalized. Go see a doctor, get a prescription, and go get it at a pharmacy rather than go to your local drug lord. That's what we should do. But no, these people are hiding from these self-evident issues that are destroying our community, and particularly the inner city. Would Obama say something about that? Would Hillary say something about that? No, they don't. They play these little tiddlywinks on these fluff issues, and then they have their minions sit there and think they're talking about foreign affairs. Here, they both are for war. Remember, in one of the debates, they were asked, will you have us out of Iraq by the end of your first term? And neither one of them pledged to do that. How difficult is that to make a pledge?
Right, this could be over next year at this time.
Well,
if someone wanted it to be. It could be over today, but
it could
assuming
be over.
I
get elected, it's over in 120 days. And you know how easy it is to do? You turn around, you go to Iran, you go to Syria, Saudi Arabia, you go to the countries in the region, and you tell them, we made a mistake. We made a mistake. We should have never have done this. Please help us correct our mistake. They'll do it. They'll be so flabbergasted that we would admit error. Of course,
right,
we
Americans
don't admit error. We didn't admit that we made an error in Vietnam, so we live with this and we repeat it again. Just the logic of it. Just understand that as an individual, when you refuse to admit your mistake, what do? You live with it and you make it over again. So why is a nation any different than an individual? You can only improve as an individual if you admit you made a mistake. We don't do this as a nation, so we repeat it over and over again. That's the tragedy, and that's the kind of leadership I will provide. I hear it as I go around. You say, "Oh my God, you speak truth. You're a breath of fresh air." What is so unusual about that? I'm not perfect, far from it. But I've got enough experience. I've been around. I've been in Congress. I've seen how it functions. And I know, as a result of my experience at my age, it doesn't pay to lie. Might as well tell the truth. You don't have to remember what you said because you saw it. And it's a lot easier. And I am so unburdened by becoming a libertarian. And people say, well, how are you going to win as a libertarian? I've got to tell you, the Libertarians have never really had a good candidate for president. First off, they've truly never had a person who has a lot of government experience. And Americans want a candidate who has government experience. They don't want somebody that has to learn where the men's room or the ladies' room is when you walk into government. Secondly, most Americans don't realize that the average American is closer to the principles of libertarianism than they are to the principles of the democracy of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. They just don't realize that. Keep in mind, the Democratic Party is a party of war. The Republican Party is a party of war. These are parties of expansion of government. That's not where the American people are today. There was a poll taken recently where 68% of the American people are really opposed to the Democratic and Republican Party. Where do you think they are? They're out there in independent land. What does that mean? They're out there in the ideology of libertarianism, private property, freedom. They don't want the Patriot Act. They don't want the government spying in their bedrooms. So look at all the mainline views of the libertarians, and I'll tell you, that's where the American people are. Just look at the phenomenon. In 5 that I know of, 5 blind polls on the issues that Americans are for, I come out far and away ahead of anybody else. So if the Americans were to pick a person for president, they pick me. They just don't know that I'm alive, thanks to the leadership of the Democratic Party and corporate America and the networks who've tried to make people believe that I don't exist.
Now, how does that work exactly? Because in Brattleboro, we have a lot of emphasis on citizen media, and I want to get to your citizen initiative soon with this. But we have a TV station where anyone can make a TV show, like we're doing right now. We have a website where anyone can write their own news. We have a radio station where anyone can. You can live in Brattleboro and not participate in the corporate media and still be intelligent and find out about things. Has the media landscape changing with the internet and YouTube and things like that? Does that make it more possible for someone like you to run?
Very much so. In fact, that's the major ingredient of this campaign, is what the internet, and of course, obviously, I'm for net neutrality. My God, I've got to tell you, I would fight tooth and toenail. I become president, it'll be easy for me to do, that the government will keep its hands off of the internet and all this new technology, and I'll pull back a lot of other areas. You're talking about the control of the media monopoly. That will change under my administration, and you can take that to the bank, because we see with the Rupert Murdochs of the world that they've dumbed down. And this is not just in the United States, I'm talking about worldwide. They have dumbed down the media of the world. And so in the United States, 5 corporations essentially control what Americans find out. And so CNN tried to wipe me out at the beginning. We overcame that. But then when General Electric decided to cut me out, and what was my major theme in this? Fighting, opposing the military-industrial complex. Have you heard that word from any other candidate? Maybe a little bit from Ron Paul, but not even from Dennis Kucinich. But that was the hallmark of my campaign, fighting against the military-industrial complex, because as long as they keep control of our society, and they control our society, there will be war after war after war, because that's the only way they can make any profits.
Yeah, you were talking about there's no money in lying, and except for certain people.
That's right. That's right. And they feed it to you, and then of course George Bush is. Well, it really is. It's very, very sad. When we Americans have been led into a psychological schizophrenia. On one side, we live in fear. We're afraid of everybody. We got Homeland Security. That's another area of government I will cut back on. One of the things that libertarians want to do, they want to shrink the government. I've got some areas I want to shrink. Homeland Security, we don't need it. We didn't need it before, and we don't need it now. And there are other areas. But Homeland Security is designed to make us fear. Fear what? Fear terrorists. Terrorists is a criminal activity. It's not a war. Now, we call it a war because terrorists has been with us since the beginning of civilization. So by calling it a war, it means we need the military-industrial complex forever and ever and ever, and always spending money.
That's quite brilliant in a way.
It's doublespeak. It's Goebbels. It's Goebbels. Doublespeak, the big lie. Spend more money for more protection, and in point of fact, you have less protection because now they tap your phones. And hey, I've been there. I was in the intelligence community. I was a top secret control officer when I was 23 years old, when I was in the service.
So you've done some spying.
Oh, hey, I've been there, know all about it. I'm informed by my experience. That's why I can really provide leadership to this country. I cannot be fooled, and I've got the wherewithal, I've got the guts to lead. I'm not afraid of them.
So you took off from the Democrats, what, about a month ago or so?
Well, about less than that, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And I took off, and took off is interesting. People say, well,
did they say no? Please don't go. Please.
No,
we love
no.
you.
They were glad to have me leave, and they're gonna regret that I left. But I didn't leave. My principles were the same. I haven't changed my principles. My principles were there. They've evolved. In 30 years, as you mature, you refine your views. You change some of your the approach to problem solving, because you mature, you get more experience, and so I have in a lot of respects. But as far as principles, no. I believe in equality. People say, well, you're a liberal. What's a liberal? A classic liberal. Do you know what a classic liberal is? That's a liberal in the old European sense, where first and foremost it's human rights. That's libertarianism. That's what I was and still am. And so when they say, you're a libertarian now, of course that's what I was all along. Mm-hmm. I can win this election if I raise as much money the young lady who's running that camera, she doubts that I can win. I can win this election. Trust me, if I have as much money as Ron Paul raised in his primary election.
Now, how does that work?
30 million. He raised $30 million. I get $30 million. I'll eat him alive. Eat him alive in debates, because you see, now when you engage them, they can't stand proper questions. Here, this simple question: ask these people, why is it that we have to spend all this money on defense that we don't need? We spend more in defense than all the rest of the world put together. Who's the threat to us? China? They only spend 3%, 5%. Russia? They only spend 3%. And we spend half of what's spent in the whole world.
And the one time our country's been attacked recently, there was no defense.
Obviously, because it's a criminal activity. And we don't even have a proper intelligence system. So we throw, here, we were spending on intelligence at the time $26 billion. Well, that's more money than all the axis of evil were spending on their defense. So we could hit them with paper. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then as soon as 9/11 occurred, we gave the intelligence community another $15 billion. I would have rather seen the Japanese model, where some of these leaders would commit harikari, or at least resign, but nobody resigned.
Well, that seems to be another thing that's missing almost entirely these days, is accountability. It's like Bush and Cheney are going to walk out in a year, and they're going to go, just go into some mansion somewhere and then collect some money.
Not entirely.
No?
I have pledged to people who are concerned about whether or not there was a conspiracy on 9/11. I don't know. I'm not all that locked up in conspiracy theories. I do know from my own experience that there are more conspiracies than the people know, but there's not as many conspiracies than the people think. That's my take on it.
So we're all noticing the wrong conspiracies.
That's right.
Making up our missing the real one.
But I do know this, that every time we've had an investigation of what happened with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, we've learned more about it. And so I think it would serve us well to re-examine what happened in the prelude to the Iraq War and to 9/11, both vertically within the intelligence community in both instances. And that with this commission, that would not be set up of politicians trying to protect the Republicans or trying to protect big names in society. That's not the kind of people I would appoint to such a commission. And they would be mandated that with subpoena powers, and mandated to require that everybody's put under oath, and they come there singly, and starting with George Bush. And if these people were to commit perjury, they will be prosecuted. If they come up with information that is disputed by the facts, they would be prosecuted. The sooner we put, and I just pointed out that these people would also be subjected to a world court. If these people commit a crime, they will be prosecuted. The sooner we abide by justice and law to the highest level of leadership, the sooner we'll have leadership that develops ethics right at the get-go. And that's a pledge I make to the American people, period.
So you're involved in a way for all of us little humble citizens to get control of our government again, too.
Well, don't ever say again, you never had control from the get-go.
What? It's a democracy, right?
Oh, come on, give me a break. A democracy. Here, let's first off, the definition of democracy and republic is the same. People rule. That's the definition. Look it up in the dictionary. The representative government is another facet of this. That's not in the definition. Now, our forebears, the framers in Philadelphia, they permitted the structure to be representative government because they did not want the people to rule. And the reason why they did this is because they cut a deal with slavery. Now, our government started with the Declaration of Independence. And we shouldn't, and that's probably the greatest thing that was ever done in American history. And in my mind, it wasn't just America. The Declaration of Independence is an articulation for the human race. All human beings are created equal. And in a short time after that, we have our people designing a government where they say that they're not all created equal. We're going to make black people slaves. It doesn't get any worse than that. And so when they cut this deal with the devil, they knew they could not permit people to continue to make laws because declaring independence is lawmaking. And when you look at all the statements of the founders, you see that they're saying that generation after generation have the right to turn around and choose whatever kind of government they want to inure to their happiness. But to do that, you need procedures. So they didn't want to give us procedures because they knew that we would not tolerate slavery. They saw this happen in Massachusetts. And so what did they do? They chose the methodology under Article 7 that it took 9 conventions of states to then ratify. And they didn't provide any procedures that they gave in Article 1 to the government and in Article 5 to the government to amend the Constitution. So they left the people out. So it took a civil war, and then we never had the procedures. I have now codified these procedures in the National Initiative for Democracy, and they're on a shelf. The government will never pass them, so we've gone around the government so the people can enact them into law by voting for them with a standard that's very straightforward, because we now have the technology to ask all Americans, do you want to be empowered as a lawmaker? Because that's where the power of government is. The central power is lawmaking. And so if you were to vote for this and we get 60 million, or the standard is the majority of the people who voted in the last presidential election, if they vote in the affirmative for the National Initiative, which is a constitutional amendment and a federal statute which sets up the procedures, which are a copy of the way the Congress functions, then you become a lawmaker in every government jurisdiction of the United States. And the Congress can do nothing about it. Now the people take over control of their government. They become the senior partners. And it's a win-win. You make the policy decisions, and the Congress will fulfill their obligation in the day-to-day operation of government. There's only one place on earth that does this. That's Switzerland. And you can see that once you get by the first blush of it all, you'll probably be voting on 3 or 4 issues a year. And that won't be that difficult to do. And it'll be on a policy level. And you'll get better people in legislative roles, and believe me, that you'll unleash the creativity of American citizens, and it'll go around the world like wildfire, and you'll unleash the creativity of the human race.
Well, let's do some imagining here. Let's say it's a year from now and it has passed, and we have the National Initiative. How does it work exactly?
Well, you and I, let's say we want to, well, I'll get us out of Iraq if I'm president. But let's say
I want to improve education.
You want to make education the #1 priority, which it is not today, okay? In fact, 1/3 of our children do not graduate from high school. That's horrific. And in the inner cities, it's 50 to 70% don't graduate. So we've condemned a major portion of our population to a sub-economic existence. And in the ghettos, you finance education by a property tax, which is regressive, and the poor areas can never get their children to be properly educated.
And now you get punished if your school does poorly.
Of course. Oh, it's absolutely abominable.
So with the national initiative, how would that work?
We can redesign, we can turn around and redesign an educational system, put it before the American people, and they vote for it. Can the Congress do it? Here, let me tell you something that you're probably not aware of. Hillary, the moment she went to Congress, she got on the Educational Committee. Obama is on the Educational Committee. Have you ever heard of them coming out with an educational plan that's worth a damn? Oh, no. Have you ever? They're both endorsed by the NEA, the union in question that refuses to fire incompetent teachers. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, how dare we rock the boat in that area. Do you think you're going to see a change in American educational system if either one of these people get elected to be President of the United States? Don't hold your breath.
Well,
But if you empower the American people, you don't think the American people don't know that our educational system sucks?
Yes, they do know that.
Of course they do, and they'll want to change. And so I don't claim to be a genius in this area, but I do. Here, you've heard this cliche. Give a person a fish, you feed him for a day. Give him a fishing pole and you can feed him for life. Well, here, I'm trying to give the American people a tool to govern themselves for their lives and the lives of their generation and generations. I'll be long gone and in the ground, and people will have a new tool to govern themselves and not depend upon their phony leaders. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, if this gets really close to happening, won't the GEs of the world just, like, clamp down on...
They've already clamped down on me. They shut me off. And I wiggled around, and I'm now coming back with the Libertarians at my back.
So you just...
I got news for you. They're going to, by the time they really wake up as to what the empowerment of the people is all about, the people will wake up also. And then it's going to be too late. Stop and think the message of what I'm saying. I'm the first person in the history of the United States of America that is saying, vote for me for president. Not because I want to live in a big White House. I could care less. I'll stay in my 1,200 square foot apartment and be president. But what I want to do is I want to make you a lawmaker, and I'll be your legislative leader. I'll be the Speaker of the House of the American legislature. And you'll vote for the laws, I'll present them to you, and then you can initiate them. And I'll tell you, we'll make music together. We'll change the world. We'll change the direction of this country. You've never heard that. What you've heard politicians say is, oh, here's the problem, and we Americans can do that. That is crap, because they got the power. You can't do anything about it. All you can do is wait another 2 years, another 4 years, or another 6 years, and you got a few seconds to throw a lever. That's all you can do. Very, very sad. You're being hoodwinked one more time.
I have friends who are smart people, and they know all this in their heart and in their soul, but then when it comes time to vote, they like to argue that, well, we really have to work within the system because we only have,
crap.
Obama's the only one who has a chance of winning.
Well, wait, stop a minute. Here, Vermont voted for Obama in the caucuses. How many in Vermont? How many in Vermont know that Obama is getting more money from the nuclear industry than any other candidate? How many know that? You know that. She just raised her hand. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean that the nuclear industry would pour money into Obama's candidacy? What do you think that means? That means he's a shill. He's a shill for the nuclear industry. And how did that happen? Oh, investigate this. There was a leak in Illinois, and the people complained about it. And so he's a senator, so he responded to the people. He introduced legislation. And so the utilities in question went to their senator and said, do you realize what this will do to the rates if this law were to pass? And so he took a deep breath. Oh, my God, that's a lot of voters out there. And so, lo and behold, his legislation that he introduced took another iteration, a little bit of change. And before you knew it, the industry started looking, oh, we like that change. And before you know it, another change. Then before you know it, they started showing up with contributions, another change. Before you know it, the head of the industry, the association, became one of his major fundraisers. And then he tells the American people, I don't raise money from lobbyists. No, I raise money from the people who hire the lobbyists. Isn't that not disingenuous? And innocent people who are hoping against hope that somebody in public office is telling them the truth. Please keep hoping and take it to the grave with you, because you'll never hear the truth from public officials. They're not structured that way.
Is the pressure to raise money the reason that corporations are able to get the ear of these people? Is it that they come in and they say, we know you need millions to win, and here you go?
All of the above. All of the above. Here, I'll give you an example. I could.
Do they come to you in the night?
Hillary, it's easier because the figures I have are dated, but I don't have recent figures. But this was New York Times now, so don't look at me to haven't done the research. Hillary was 89% of the number of people who donated to Hillary's campaign. 89% were $500 and above. Well, that's not your kid in college or your kid donating. For Obama at the time was 68% of the people who donated to his campaign was $500 and above. So when he's telling that he's getting it from the ordinary citizen, I don't know what the figures are right now, but that's what it was when I read the piece in the New York Times. The stuff is disingenuous. I did notice in that same article that UBS Bank, which is a Swiss bank, that the head of UBS Bank went around in the bank and collected $179,000 from the employees of the bank. Well, it's not hard when the president of the bank goes around and suggests that I'm donating to Obama. I'd like to see you people help a little bit. So they donated. So Obama gets this money. Now that bank has probably 5 or more lobbyists in Washington. And so when Obama can say with a straight face, I don't collect money from lobbyists, what does that mean? He collects money from the people who hire lobbyists. And I'll bet you, if you looked at the people who are packaging the money and the people who are high level in his campaign, many of them were lobbyists before they were working for him, and after they're done and he's president, they'll go back and be lobbyists. So what's the joke that's going on? And these people that are so naive, they're young, they're new, and they're inexperienced. Here's the tragedy. The tragedy is that when you give people false hope, what you do is you create a new generation of cynics, because the worst thing you can do is to give people hope and then not deliver. And that creates cynics, and then they lose faith in government, and they lose faith in participating in the chances of changing government. And that's what I'm trying to change. Don't have faith in them, have faith in yourself. You are the answer. Sure, we need good people to run for public office, but it's the structure of representative government that does not permit them to act properly. That's the reason why you have to come in, because you won't be party to that structure. The people will be making laws over here separate from representative government. The people will be the fourth arm of the government, but it won't be representative government. And what will be so unique is that you won't be party to the checks and balances. You will be the fourth check. And the party system, which controls all the other departments of government and voids the check and balance system, cannot control the people. The parties will not control the people. And so the shortcoming of the parties, which aren't even mentioned in the Constitution, you'll diminish the power of the party system. And I've mentioned this to libertarians. If the Libertarian Party became equal to the Democratic Party, it would be as corrupted as the Democratic and Republican Party. So by getting the people empowered to be able to make laws, you'll diminish the power of the parties, and you'll improve the power. Now, the minute the people come in as lawmakers, they become the senior partners. They'll be able to amend the Constitution. And I know, understanding how the political mind works, they'll shape up. The representatives will shape up, and you'll see they'll do a better job. If they didn't, the people could wipe them out. They could wipe out the Congress, do away with the Supreme Court. They have that power. They are the sovereigns. You are the sovereigns. You have to believe in yourself. Individually, you're the sovereigns. So the libertarians are good at believing in this. I want all the rest of the American people to believe, like libertarians, you are the sovereigns, and when you walk into society, you are the collective sovereignty of our polity. And when you make a majoritarian decision, that is the ultimate decision of the polity of our government. Please have faith in yourself.
So would we have ballot initiatives throughout the year?
Well, here
every time something comes up, will we all get a phone call and have to press a number?
No, it's more orderly than that, much more. In Switzerland, they only have 3 or 4 issues a year at the federal level. Then you have at the state level, the local level. So it depends on the issues. You probably would have more issues at a local level because that's where more governance takes place, where people would be involved in. And of course, that's where you get major problems because you have more, believe it, you have more corruption at a local level than you have at the federal level because there's more attention at the federal level than the local level. That's where the media focuses. So you're going to see an inversion of what takes place because now you'll have a say. First off, I'm the first to admit, I do not understand, and I've studied this, I mean a major portion of my life, I do not understand all of the unintended consequences of what I'm talking about by empowering the people. I do know this. I have unreserved faith in the people. You know something? I have no choice, nor do you. We, the people, are the rational elements of the planet. And we know one thing, that for sure we're not doing a good job managing the resources of this planet Earth, the village. And we can do a better job, and we need the tools to do it. And governance in the hands of human beings is the tool to do a better job.
All right. Well, I'd love to talk with you just all afternoon and all night. But
I can do that.
We could. All right. Let's keep.
But we won't. But we won't.
You obviously have other places to go.
We've reached our threshold. I think we've reached the threshold of the absorption of the audience. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to proselytize the audience for one bit. I've written this book, Citizen Power. I wrote it in 1971. 90% is new stuff because I've won over 36 years. Obviously, I've improved. I've acquired more knowledge. Most of it, 90% of it is new stuff. You can get it by going to citizen-power. Am I getting it right? So it gloss. citizenpower.us, a mandate for change. The tools are there. Chapter 2 in detail describes the national initiative. Chapter 12, who stole the American dream? It was stolen by the framers of the Constitution of the United States. And so you can equip yourself. The text of the law, only 5,600 words. It's less than any one of most of the chapters in here. You can read the text of the law, and it's all there for you to digest, have meetings, discuss it, equip yourself to take over your government. Thank you. I hope you'll buy it. It's paperback. No hardcovers. I don't believe in hardcover books. You cut down too many trees when you do that. And it's $20. It's within reach of anybody. And 3 people can buy it, 1, and share it and read it and enjoy it. And if you have any comments, contact me. And if you feel you've been cheated, contact me and I'll give you back your money.
Well, you can't.
What more can I say to that?
All right.
Citizen Power. Thank you. And I wrote it, make no mistake about it. I've had some help from some good people, but I talk about drugs. I was just in the store, and they have hemp blouses. All I could think of was, my God, if you don't want to wear this, maybe you can smoke it or eat it.
I think people have tried, and no.
It doesn't work very good.
No.
But that's okay. Under my plan, when we deregulate, you can go to a liquor store or grocery store and get some good pot.
Very good. All right, we'll leave it there. And maybe Barack or Hillary would like to come on next week, and
That's
we'll,
right.
we'll,
Be fair.
we'll carry on these.
Bring them on and raise some of
The
the questions.
invitation is there.
For sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.